Hi, it's Rex Sikes, and welcome to All Things Rex Worldwide Live. It's Thursday, and I've got a fabulous guest coming up. I'm going to tell you all about him in just a moment. His name is Mark Allen. He's an international publisher, seminar leader, thought leader, composer, and entrepreneur, and you're going to want to hear what he has to say. Um, but first, I want you to know that every Thursday at this time, through the Los Angeles Tribune Facebook page, you can ask questions of my guest and or leave comments because we're streaming live there. We're also streaming live on the Los Angeles Tribune YouTube, LinkedIn, my LinkedIn as well, Twitch, Twitter, and Periscope. And all of these are available in replay, and it's also available on Roku TV. So if you don't catch us live, be sure to catch the replay, and please share this show, this very show with Mark and me, as well as the other shows with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and your associates, because caring means sharing, and sharing is caring. So I want to tell you about Mark, and then I'm going to bring him on. Mark is the author of numerous books. He first published Shakti Gwan's Creative Visualization in 1977 with Shakti, and he has gone on to write numerous books: The Millionaire Course, The Magical Path, Type Z, A Guide to Success, How to Think Like a Millionaire, and The Greatest Secret of All, Visionary Business and a Visionary Life, and Tantra for the West, and the 10% Solution. He is prolific as a writer and as a speaker. He is one of the good guys, and you're going to want to really listen to what Mark has to say. He's been doing this a long time. I am so thrilled to have him here, and I'm going to be bringing Mark on right now. Mr. Mark Allen, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Rex. Thanks for that great introduction.
Well, you are you've helped so many people through your books, your writings, your workshops, seminars, your music, so many different things that you do. And I'm going to ask you this question right off the bat because I know people are very curious. They must think you're a workaholic. They must think that you're stressed to the max doing all these things.
That's funny. Some people do. It amazes me because I am the opposite of a workaholic. I even tried it in a book title, though it didn't really catch on, but I call myself a type Z, opposite than a type A. And type Z, and Z is also the ZZZ for sleep, because I like to sleep late. I usually sleep till around 11, and then I often take a nap in the afternoon. I'm lazy. I never was a morning person. The day I turned 30, I decided to do this experiment to really go for my dream and start a publishing company. But as I thought through my ideal scene, like ideally, the experiment I did with myself was to imagine 5 years had passed and I had the ideal life. What would my life look like? And I immediately imagined this publishing company. I knew nothing about business or anything. But then immediately too, I thought, oh yeah, I want to create a company, but I want to do it in my own lazy way. I only want to work when I feel like it. I'd been a musician in my 20s and an actor in my early 20s. And I love those hours. You never do a thing until 1 p.m. And I said, okay, this is my experiment. I'll go for my dream, but I'll do it in my own lazy way. My doubts and fears said, won't work. And I said, well, give me a year or two to try this as an experiment. And I found it worked. One woman summed up what I do. She said, you talk about success with ease, Yes. I only work when I feel like it.
That is so beautiful, because what you do is you give hope to so many people who, go counter to, the idea of you got to take massive action and you got to be doing it 24/7. And you got to be, if you're not doing it, then something's wrong.
Yes.
You literally exemplify easing your way to success. And I love that.
My own father was that way. If you start your own company, you got to work 60 hours a week. He also said, when I told him I was starting a company on my 30th birthday, his first words were, well, 80% of startups fail in their first 2 years. And I thought, oh boy, okay, here, I can't share my dreams with this guy. because you just shoot him down. And he's reflecting my own doubts and fears. So I kept my mouth shut. I didn't share my dream until about 4 years later, when it started to do really well, and then it blew him away.
Wow. So how do you do it as someone who sleeps late and dreams, success? How does that work as opposed to what so many people are encouraged to do, which is spend all their time, going after their goals?
I know. It all gets down to our deep core beliefs about things. We're taught, from an early age, you must work hard to succeed. We believe that. Well, it turns out our beliefs are not necessarily true in themselves. Many, many people have very different beliefs than we do. But our beliefs become true in our experience if we believe them. So all these people have said to me, oh, you got to work 60 hours a week to start a company. And I said, well, if you believe it, right, it's true for you, but I choose not to believe it. What I choose to believe is that the amount of time we give something expands, to fill the amount of time we're willing to give to it. So if we think it's necessary to work 60 hours a week, we find we have to. But I said, I'm going to do this experiment because I'm basically lazy. I've always been lazy. And that was part of my dream, to be able to continue to be lazy, which I've continued to be all my adult life. I sleep till 11, and then it takes me an hour or two to really get to work. And then I take a break whenever I feel like it. And sometimes sometimes I'll, get to work at 1, and now I'm working at home. And then 2:30 or 3, I'll sometimes take a nap. And it just varies. I just follow my energy. But I found over the years, maybe I give creating my successful company, maybe I give it 20 hours a week or something of focused work. And that's enough. It's totally enough. The amount of hours does not correspond directly to the amount of success at all. At all. It's not the amount of work, it's the quality of the work.
That's an excellent point. I mean, that's truly an excellent point. Was it? You said at 30, but was it always this way? Were you able to, from the start?
The day I turned 30, that's when I did my ideal scene, something I teach about today. I remember this game I'd played years ago during this disastrous back to the land experiment that I did when I was about 22. And this couple said, let's play a game we play at church camp. Let's imagine 5 years have passed and your life looks as great as you can possibly imagine. What would your life look like? What is your ideal scene? They called it. And we all went around a fire then outside. And I don't remember a word of what I said the first time. I was about 22. But the day I turned 30, I woke up in a state of shock. I had no money. I had no job. I was in a slum apartment in a nasty part of Oakland, California. Not a nice neighborhood. I had no family support. We were scrounging all the time, a word we used all the time, to pay the rent. And I turned 30, and it was a shock to me. This voice kept saying, "You're 30." So that day I paced up and down, and then I did alone. I couldn't have a party. I was alone. And I did the ideal scene. I remember that game, but this time I wrote it down. I put ideal scene. Much to my amazement, the first thing that spilled out was, I have a successful publishing company, publishing wonderful books. And then all these other things spilled out. And then at the end, I even wrote, oh, yes, I have a life of ease. I only work when I feel like it. This became my experiment. My doubts and fears all said it won't work. I wrestled with my doubts and fears. I argued with them through half the day. I remember it vividly. I still remember every thought I had in this long conversation. And I said, I want to try this as an experiment. They said it won't work. Well, if it doesn't work, I'll be no worse off than I am now. I had no job, no income at all. And So even my doubts and fears said, well, yeah, it can't get too much worse. So I went for my experiment. And then, full disclosure, because I had no money and I knew nothing about financing a business. I'd been a theater major in college and then a musician. I knew nothing about business at all. I'd had no interest in it before I decided to start a company. So the only way I could think about financing it was to get a job, any kind of job. And I'd learned how to typeset in my 20s. So I got on the phone the day after my birthday and got a perfectly horrible job typesetting starting at 8:30 in the morning, 40 hours a week. And I did that for just a few months, and I kept looking for a better job. And I finally found a great job typesetting the UC Berkeley newspaper. And it was a lot of fun. And it started at 4 p.m. So I worked 4 to 12 for a while, for maybe a year and a half or so. And then I got fired for not showing up on time. And by then I had the skills. I did my own typesetting and in my own time, my own hours. And that's from that point on, I really was able to shift to just working when I felt like it and sleeping late every day.
Wow. I mean, that's truly very cool. Has it changed much? I mean, do you think that today, if somebody was starting a business, that it would be the same as back then? Or?
No, I think same. If anything, it's easier than ever with internet. It's easier than ever. We had to really do a lot to develop, book distribution of physical books. It took a long time to meet the right people that got books in the stores and all that. And now you can do it on the internet so much more easily.
Do you what you said was the ideal scene, and
Yeah.
you put these things down. Did you spend a lot of time in reflection about trying to come up with what you wanted, or did you kind of just surprise yourself? You said something important earlier, that you said you just kind of go with how your energy goes throughout the day. Has that been something you follow that in everything that you do?
Yeah. No, my ideal scene just kind of spilled out. And over the years, I've taught a lot of workshops and had people write their ideal scene. And some people do have a real problem with it. Others don't. And I always just say, just go for whatever spills out of your mind for now. You can always change it tomorrow. But I wrote it really fast. I wrote it in 10 or 15 minutes. It was 10 or 15 minutes that changed my life. I often thought later that I was a different person at the end of that day of my 30th birthday than I was at the beginning. At the beginning, I was clueless. I had no dream. I had no plan. I was just getting through the week and getting through the month and getting enough to get the rent together. That was my vision for my life. By the end of that day, I had a 5-year plan down. I had this, just writing my ideal scene. It was, I am now running a successful publishing company in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way. And I am now publishing books, including my own, that changed the world. I'm now recording my music. And I wrote all these things in this dream. And I have a life of ease. I only work when I feel like it. I wrote it all down. And then I ended up realizing there were all these goals in there. So I made a list of goals. 1, start a publishing company. 2, start writing a book. 3, start recording your music. 4, start learning about real estate. Because also I wanted a big white house on a hill in a beautiful place in California. And that was part of my ideal. And so then I wrote it down as a goal. Then I rewrote my goals as affirmations. And that's what I still teach today. Affirmations have really changed my life. I never even had to come to believe in them or make a leap of faith or anything. I just did them. I'd read a book by a Unity Church minister named Catherine Ponder in my 20s. And there I got the whole idea of affirmations to affirm, to make firm. And I got the specific affirmation in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way, in its own perfect time, for the highest good of all. And then you say, I am creating a successful company. I'm now creating, or whatever. So I made a list of every one of my goals as affirmations and started, carrying it around with me. And that changed my life.
That is so beautiful, because so often I think a lot of people overthink the process, and they'll say get really detailed, get really specific, and then people like I go, I don't know exactly what I want. How can you know until you kind of experience some of it?
Right.
And yet you kind of, in a loose and easy way, created the vision of what you wanted, and then turned that in, and then described the goals, and then turned those into affirmations, and then made the affirmations fit in an easy, loose, and comfortable way.
Yeah.
There's such a great inherent beauty in that.
It really worked for me, and to this day, it's in a lot of my books, and it's all, I teach the same thing. I just teach what I did on the day I turned 30. First, write an ideal scene, then write a list of goals, then rewrite each goal as an affirmation. And then over the next few days after I did that, I found plans emerging for every goal, every major goal. And then I did a one-page plan, a real simple one-page plan, even for my company, for my writing and music. I do these one-page plans, and I just knew intuitively the plan was what got your subconscious mind engaged in it. And for your subconscious mind, I really think it's best to be simple and clear and short. The simpler, the better for your plans. So I encourage everyone, make a plan on paper, make it very short. You don't have to even understand everything necessary to like start and build a company or anything. You just need to have that goal of a successful company at the top, and then your next few steps. Literally my first business plan, I remember it exactly. It was the day after I turned 30. I wrote, okay, I am now creating a successful company in an easy and relaxed manner, a healthy and positive way. I had that at the top. Then my steps were, number one, read a used business 101 textbook, because I knew nothing about even what a business was. I had no clue. And two, talk to people that that know more about business than you do. And that was it. That was my entire plan, because I knew nothing about business. So that's what I had to do. That was my first plan.
What I love about that is the fact that a lot of people go, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to make a plan. I don't know what to do. And your first thing was read a book about something I don't know anything about, and talk to people. I mean, that is as valid a plan as anything else, because it gives you the ability to move.
Right. And I found that's all I needed, those first two steps. And once I read the book, talked to people, I thought, oh yeah, you got to make a business plan. And so I ended up making an actual business plan. And eventually I even raised some money with that plan. So one thing led to another.
That is so truly wonderful. And again, I just want to point out that it so many people are having, I think people overthink creativity, creation, the law of attraction, attracting, and everything that we do, and you have simplified it. And one of the things that I just really love that you said was to keep everything clear and concise and simple for the subconscious mind. Now, I sure we agree on this. The subconscious mind is billions of times more powerful than our conscious mind.
Yes.
But I believe you have to talk to it like it's a child. I mean, in other words, it's not the words, it's not these complex paragraphs and everything else. It's just be what you said, clear and concise, and then I'm sure that the energy that you felt, the ease and the way that you communicated, also informed your subconscious mind what you wanted.
You just said exactly what I heard years ago, and I forget who said it. Somebody said, our subconscious mind is like this vastly powerful 5-year-old that'll believe anything you tell it. You tell a 5-year-old there's monsters under the bed, they'll believe it. So our subconscious mind, if you say, I am now creating the life of my dreams, your subconscious mind says yes, and is totally capable of doing it and shows you what to do. The problem is for most of us, then once we say that, start to set it in motion, all these doubts and fears arise, and we end up saying, oh, it's so hard to succeed. So few people succeed. And so our subconscious mind says yes to that. It says yes to every thought. So it says, yes, it's hard to succeed for you with those thoughts. Yes, true.
I love this. I love this. I have a chapter in my book that says there is no such thing as self-sabotage.
Mm,
The subconscious mind only does what it knows to do. It only does what it says yes to everything.
yes.
And when fears and doubts and these things arise, that's actually I think that's actually there so that you can release them. It is to keep you consistent, obviously. I mean, it's to keep you alive and to keep you consistent, but they come up as opportunities that the
Yeah.
conscious mind, we go, I'm afraid or I'm bored or I don't like this or whatever. And then we start talking about how we sabotage ourselves or we blame or we make excuses or everything. That's the conscious mind assigning something where the subconscious mind is just like, yep, tell me what to do and I'll do it. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And it does it. And then if it does something that we don't like, then we go, oh, see, it's sabotaging me.
Right, right. That's exactly it. I keep thinking the older I get, the simpler it becomes, the clearer I see it. The whole process, as far as I understand it, is totally simple now to me. There's really just two essential things to do. The one essential is to dare to dream, to really picture your ideal, picture what you want to create in your mind and affirm it. I am now creating the life of my dreams. And then the other essential thing is once you do that and start taking whatever steps, the steps to take will just, as long as you keep focusing on it, will just become obvious. And there'll always be small, easy steps. You just take those steps, keep them. And then the other essential thing, you deal with the doubts and fears that inevitably arise for all of us as soon as you dare to dream. We all have these doubts and fears that arise from deep so-called negative, or we could call them limiting beliefs. We all have some beliefs. Oh, we're not enough somehow. We're not capable of really creating great success. We weren't raised right. We didn't get the right education. We have no money. Whatever it is, whatever these limiting beliefs are, we can deal with those and change those. And that's the other essential thing. Dare to dream and deal with the doubts and fears that arise. I think that's it. I think it's that simple.
I said, this is so cool. I'm going to play back. This is so cool. What you said, because about simplifying. Okay. And it's this, that regardless of what you do, whether it's composing music, writing, playing basketball, sewing, cooking, whatever skill you have, the older you get with it, the less you do.
Hmm.
In other words, all the things that you learn to get good now are streamlined, so you don't have to do those consciously anymore. You don't have to keep. So most like major golfers or basketball players or football players continue to practice the basics. They do little putt shots and warm ups and things. They don't go out of their way to try and do all these advanced moves and everything. It's they don't throw the sink at everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's gotten easier,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that people who are starting out need to know that the ultimate where they're going to end up is going to be a lot easier, a lot smoother, a lot more comfortable than they think it is at the moment that they're starting out.
Yes.
Does that make sense? I mean, would you?
Yes, it's true. It's true. It does get easier and easier. Someone once said, once you do something 2,000 times, it's really automatic and quick. And yeah. it does get much, much easier.
So I'm a huge fan of your works, and I've got all of your books in my library, and I've read each one,
Hmm.
and you know, some of the things like the Millionaire Course, or you know, Thinking Like a Millionaire, you have brought your personal experience and your philosophy to making money and being successful. Is there anything that you would also add, given these books? Because I think everybody should read your books. But given what we've been talking about so far today, anything else that you would add in regarding, you know, the money mindset? That because a lot of people, especially in this day and age, seem to have you know, a focus on making ends meet or doing better than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Uh, I mean, it is essential to take care of things. I did just do this blog recently, really thinking through uh, the the mindset of, you know, creating $1 million and what's necessary, and that's part of the subject of the Millionaire Course. But I did think, and wrote recently, you know, a million is a totally arbitrary number. You might not need $1 million at all. It what It's really good to think through what we really need and want. Maybe it doesn't even require a lot of money to do what we need and want in life. There, it might be a lot simpler than we think to really get down to what do I want to do with my life? What's my dream? What what do I want to do that where I wake up in the morning and feel really good about what's ahead for me that day? What kind of life is that? It may require a lot less money than you think. We published a book of one woman who realized she was divorced in a big house with a big corporate job, and she realized she was spending all this time paying for this mortgage on a house she really didn't need. And she ended up uh, selling her house and buying a truck with a trailer. And she had a guy build a house on the back of the truck. And she parked it in the backyard of a really good friend of hers. They're really great buddies. So she had sort of a roommate. And she cut her expenses down from like 6 or 7,000 a month mortgage and utilities to $8 a month utilities.
Wow, that's worth knowing.
Yeah, yeah, that was great. And she realized, so then she quit her job. She didn't have to work so hard. She could just do what she loves. She started doing art, and I thought, okay, it's really good to do that kind of self-examination about uh, what what do you really want to do? Even if you had $1 million, okay, what would you do with it? What would you want to do with it? And maybe there's a way to live and do things that doesn't require you to really work hard and make a lot of money in order to do it. Maybe there's an easier, simpler way.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. And again, I think, you know, people, it's like, you know, chase things where they haven't truly thought them out. Uh,
Mhm.
you're, you know, I hope I'm a man after your own heart, because I too decided when I was fairly young. I mean, I wanted a lot of stuff and I wasn't sure how to get it, but I knew what I didn't want. I didn't want to be stressed about things. I didn't want to be working a 9 to 5. I didn't want to be, I mean, I, you know, knew all the things that I didn't want to do. So then I had to end up converting that into what I wanted. I wanted to be able to manage my time, my hours, who I hung out with, do what I do, you know, when I do it, and work how I want to work, and do at something that I love, and not be doing something that I don't love for somebody else. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with working for somebody else, but I mean, I had some, you know, absolute what I don't want and what I wouldn't tolerate, and then what I absolutely did want. And I love it. And what I loved was like when you said I wanted a big white house on the hill.
Yeah.
Do you think that you have to specify more than that, or that that your brain kind of gets it anyway?
I think the brain gets it anyway. Yeah. I do think if you really want $1 million, it is good to specify it, because I think your subconscious can grab onto it and make it happen if that's what you really want. But in terms of how, yeah, I just said a big white house on a hill. And that's exactly what I got. And then after a while, I walked around and I said, what do I need this? It was a huge house. It was 10,000 square feet under the roof with, a racquetball court and tennis court and sauna and steam room. It was a spa, basically. And I finally realized I don't need something this big at all. So I downsized, and but I think I did need it initially just to really prove to myself that this stuff worked, that I could visualize sitting there having no income the day I turned 30 at all, no savings at all, no family support, to imagine this big white mansion on a hill with a gorgeous view and a huge tree in the yard. And that's exactly what I ended up creating.
Wow. Well, I've got to take a little bit of a break here, Mark, and I got to tell people about my book and about the Los Angeles Tribune. And by the way, we did put Mark's web address up earlier. Be sure that you can visit markallen.com, and it's there in the chat, and it's also been on screen, and also newworldlibrary.com, and we'll flash that up again so that everybody can see that, because it's absolutely worth it. And you're going to want to read Mark's books if you haven't already. And if you have, you're going to want to read them again, especially after this discussion we're having today. And again, I'm very thrilled that you're here, and we'll be back in just a moment, Mark. So thank you so much. And I am Rex Sikes. I'm the author of Life on Your Terms. And as a bonus for getting the book from Amazon, I'm giving you a free $497 bonus training called the Mastery Loop, which is on how to master your mindset, your emotions, your attitude, your behaviors, and any skill that you'd like to learn. It's based on my work in the past 40 years. And so that's absolutely free. You just go to rexsikes.com/book. That's my name /book, and we'll have that up for you later too. And you put in your receipt code from Amazon, and you will get access to an absolutely wonderful training that you're going to want to have. I also at this time want to thank the Los Angeles Tribune for inviting me to do this show, All Things Rex Worldwide Live, and for all the incredible guests that I've had. But if it weren't for the Los Angeles Tribune, you wouldn't be seeing Mark and I right now at this moment, and I'm so glad that you are. So I thank Mo Rock, I thank the Los Angeles Tribune, and the Los Angeles Tribune also has other fabulous shows with incredible hosts that if you aren't familiar with, you want to check the lineup. All of these, by the way, are live streamed and then available for replay and on Roku TV. So go and check that out. And there's lots of new developments coming through the Los Angeles Tribune in the days and the weeks and the months ahead. So be sure to stay tuned. And then again, be sure to stay tuned to my show every Thursday at this time. That's 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. Eastern. And so now back to Mr. Mark Allen. Mark, let me ask you this. When we talked, you were talking about the fears and the doubts that arise when someone does this. So you're 30 years old and you've set this in motion and said, this is what I want. I want to have a publishing company. I want to, and I want to do it in an easy way. How would you recommend people handle the doubts, the fears, the anxieties? Because a lot of people, I think, lose focus of what they want because they're so focused on their everyday situations. In other words, they want money, but they don't have it. The mortgage is due. They want a new job, but they're working, 60 or 80 hours a week. They can't figure out how to get the new one because they don't have the time to go and, so they're focused on the circumstances, events, or even the other people in their life. Like when your father said to you, hey, most businesses fail, they let that bother them or eat at them or detract them from accomplishing what it is that they'd like to accomplish. So what do you recommend that people do in that regard?
In a way, we've been dealing with our doubts and fears all our lives. And in some of those areas, we've been successful. So looking at what you've already done and what's worked in certain areas is really helpful. the single most powerful thing I did, and I did it on my 30th birthday because I learned it when I was 28, is a simple process called the core belief process that I learned in a workshop when I was 28 years old. And it's just asking yourself 8 questions whenever you're facing a problem. And I've done it hundreds of times. I've done it hundreds of times with hundreds of people over the years. And it's an amazing thing. On my website, markallen.com, you can get a download of it. But I can even just quickly it's just 8 questions. I can just really quickly go through. You just ask yourself 8 questions. Number 1, it's called the core belief process, or I like to call it underlying belief, because core sounds fixed and solid, and our beliefs are not fixed and solid. They can and do change over time, often, a lot of them. So number 1, the first question is, what's the problem? Do this with people. Everybody knows this immediately. Blah, blah, blah. Here's the problem. Go through what's bugging you, what's irritating you, what is the specific problem. And here, be specific. If there's 2 problems, split them off. Do 1 for each thing. What's the problem? Then 2, just how are you feeling physically when you're dealing with a problem? And it's great. It forces you to just look internally. Okay, my shoulders and neck are tight. If it's an anxiety, your stomach may be churning, whatever it may be. Then 3, how am I feeling emotionally? And you just name the emotion. You don't have to go on and on about it, but just name the emotion, whatever it may be. Oh, I'm frustrated. I'm anxious. Whatever it may be, name the emotion. Then 4, we always used to say, what tapes are you running? Maybe that's obsolete now, but basically, what are those recurring thoughts that are going on and on and on? Some scientists have said, like over 90% of our thoughts are recurring thoughts, the same thoughts going over and over. What's going on about this problem? Okay, well, I'm telling myself it's really hard. This isn't working. Whatever it is, just say it out loud to you, or really think it clearly, or to yourself. What's going on? What are those thoughts? What are those thoughts? Then you ask yourself a very good question. What's the worst that could happen? And then that brings up your fears. You start looking at your fears. What's the worst that could happen? Well, it could all fall apart, whatever it may be. Then even say, okay, if that happened, then what's the worst that could happen? I remember the first time I did it, I ended up saying, well, I could die. A drunken bum in the gutter in central LA or something, a long, painful death, and people would step over me and not even acknowledge I was there, and you end up often chuckling at the worst possibility, realizing probably will not happen, but it's really good to look at. It's really good to open that closet where you're hiding your fears and look at them. Just shine a light in there. Oh, I'm afraid of homelessness. I'm afraid, whatever it may be. What's the worst that could happen? Okay, then ask yourself, what's the best thing that can happen in this situation? I have literally done this hundreds of times with hundreds of people over the years. And almost every time when you ask what's the worst thing, people just launch right into it. What's the problem? What's going on in your mind? Or what's the worst thing that could happen? People launch right into it. Then you say, okay, what's the best thing? And so many of us have the same response. We go, And we're staring into space and we realize we've been focusing on the worst case scenario and our fears. We haven't even been focusing on what is the best possible thing. What is your ideal scene in this situation? And that's often a real shock to people. And I'll wake up, it's like, okay, what's the best thing that could happen? Well, and then you come up with the best thing. I did it when I was nearly bankrupt. And I remember, the worst thing, oh, I'm almost bankrupt. And the best thing then suddenly was, oh, well, we could get a new distributor that pays us on time for distributing our stuff, and we could make a profit. And suddenly the best case scenario, you get clear on it. Then 7, very good question again. Why isn't the best possible scenario happening right now for you? What's the reason? Well, whatever comes up will shine a light on your deep core beliefs, your deep underlying beliefs. Well, it's not working because it's too hard for me. It's too complex, or I'm incapable of doing it, or whatever comes up. Why aren't you already creating your dream in this situation? Whatever comes up will reflect your underlying belief. So you nail your deep underlying belief that's not working for you in as short and simple terms as you can. Keep it short, keep it simple. I believe I'm incapable. I believe it's just too hard to succeed. I didn't have the right education. Whatever it is, you find what it really isn't working for you. You find that belief, that deep belief. Oh, I believe I don't have what it takes. I believe whatever it may be. Then the final question is, what affirmation or counter statement can you tell yourself that directly contradicts and counteracts that negative limiting belief? If you say, I don't have what it takes, you just say, I have what it takes. I am now creating the life of my dreams. I just did an interview with Sark a while ago, this wonderful woman we published and she even added a whole thing to it. She said, she called them counter statements and said, it's best to even begin with the word actually. So when you realize your belief is, I'm incapable, then your counter statement is, actually, I am sensible and totally capable of creating whatever. You say actually to that counter statement. And you come up with that the right affirmation, the right counter statement. You write that down and you repeat it, and it will overcome that limiting belief.
Wow, that's fantastic. It's truly amazing. I love it. And I want to take 2 points if I can go back and remember. One was, and I just think it's beautiful, especially how you described it, was people easy to get to the worst fear, and they go, oh, the worst that would happen, this, that, and the other. Then you say, what's the best that could happen? They go,
Yeah.
and some people get thrown by that. They're like, there is no best thing because they can't come up with one right away. But what you said, which I really loved, and still do, is that it demonstrates where your attention has been. It shows you thinking about the worst, not about the best. Because if you were thinking about the best, it would be just as easy as thinking about the worst.
Mm-hmm.
So it demonstrates literally where your focal point, or where you've been putting your energy. So that's absolutely beautiful, and it's quite profound in a very wonderfully simple way. And the other thing is that when you then go in and attack the belief, you have this statement. In my work with people, for years, I keep saying, you don't have to find all the limiting beliefs in your life. You can't do that anyway. You got too many, and that psychology thing of getting you to focus on stuff that keeps you occupied for a long time, but really doesn't help you change much. But with the process that you do, because I always tell people, you'll know when the limiting belief comes up, because it'll be the thing that stops you. You'll be saying, well, I can't do that. Or if you realize this. So when you challenge, what I love about the process that you're describing is that, given whatever the nature of what they're focusing on and whatever it is that they want to accomplish in their dream, to make happen, and you then say, what's going on here, and the belief surfaces, you get to confront it at that moment, and then shift and change and then say, actually, I believe this. So you don't have to dig through, you don't have to dig a big hole to try and find anything because it's going to come up.
Yep.
It's always there. You know what I mean? People think, I got to go through and I got to work through all these problems and all this stuff. That's why I say there's no such thing as sabotage. But this is such a beautiful, easy, and elegant process because it's simple, but it's profound and it's powerful, and it's right there. If you do this, these things will kind of appear, and then you can handle them and resolve them, to your betterment. So beautiful, Mark.
Right. That's true. Like for each major problem, it gets down to like one belief, one core belief. When I was nearly bankrupt, I came up with a core belief. I realized I felt I was a fool with money. I was out of control. That's when I answered the question, why isn't your ideal happening? Well, I'm a fool with money. I'm out of control. That was my belief. A good, simple. And so then, okay, what counteracted that? What's the counter statement? And I could have said, actually, at the time, it was before I found that word actually. Now, the actually is even more powerful to say to your subconscious. But I came up with, actually, I am sensible and in control of my finances. I am creating total financial success. And then I tacked on, in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way, in its own perfect time, for the highest good of all. I said that, I don't know, several hundred times over the next few months, I'm sure, and things completely turned around over the next few months financially.
That's beautiful. I mean, it's truly, truly beautiful, and it demonstrates the power of that which we speak. This is truly, truly remarkable, and I appreciate that. It is so, I think, just so wonderful and so, well, it's positive that what you exemplify is this again. It's just a very elegant and easy way to approach things. Do you remember the Lazy Man's Way to Riches? Do you remember that book back in the early 70s and big in TV marketing in California? Joe Carl.
Oh, right. I remember that. Yeah.
It was like, here, I'm going to teach you how to, the Lazy Man's Way to Riches. I'm going to teach you how to be a millionaire. Write a book and do what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And he just tells you to do what he did. And it was so simple. I got the book at the time, and I thought at the time I felt ripped off, but it was actually true. It was like, hey, if you just do these things, you'll find that you don't have to do all these other things because it's a streamlined approach. And what you exemplify is this very streamlined, elegant, beautiful. When I say simple, I don't mean simplistic. I mean just a very easygoing way to accumulate or to amass or to get all of your powers focused and working toward whatever the target is that you set.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
It is simple, and for me, the simpler the better. And I think your subconscious mind, again, it needs simple, clear instructions, not too complex.
That 5-year-old child.
Yeah.
Do you with that approach, how do you handle time frames? Because a lot of people are going, well, I have a deadline, or I want it now, or they go, within 5 years, I want this. Is there a way of, because you say in the right time, and that could happen sooner or later. I found one thing that for me back in my day, I'd say, well, I want to make this amount of money in this amount of time, or I want to do, and it was always further out than it needed to be. In other words, it could, like Napoleon Hill's book, in The Laws of Success, he talks about the minister who said, if I had $1 million this week, and he decided he was going to do a sermon. Do you remember this story? He writes his sermon, and he goes and he publishes that he's going to be in this church on Sunday. And this is a true story. Anybody can find it on they can search it on Wikipedia or whatever. And so he published that he would be talking on this particular day about if he had $1 million. And he gets to deliver his sermon. He realizes he doesn't have his notes. And he's like, well, all right, I'll wing it. So he said, well, if I had $1 million, because he needed $1 million right away. And what he wanted to do And at the conclusion of the sermon, this gentleman walked up to him and said, "I have the money that you need. See me this week." And the guy gave him the money a week or two later, and he had $1 million, and he started school in Chicago. And the rest is history. But most of us don't think that, a million. I mean, this is $1 million back in the teens and the 20s, and we think, well, if I could have $1 million, 5 years from now, what do I have to do to get it, to make this kind of money, and the steps I have to go through, when in fact, it could be yours next week. I mean, there are people making millions of dollars every second. So it's not like it's and I don't want to make this just about money, but the point is that sometimes when what we think is realistic for our goal is really not realistic. It could be much sooner than we think, or it could conversely take much longer. But so the idea that in the right time, how do you navigate that, though, as the person setting that?
Yeah, some people have felt this is a contradiction, but I have no problem, and my subconscious mind has no problem with saying, I want to double my profits this year and do it in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way, in its own perfect time, for the highest good of all. I remember the first time I did that particular one of saying I want to double my profits, that I did that for a year, and then that year our profits were flat, same as last year. And I remember thinking, oh, is my affirmation power down or something, whatever. And I kept it up for the next year, saying I want to, I want to increase my profit by 50%. That was it. I want to increase my profit by 50%. And the first year it was flat. Then the second year I kept saying I want to increase it by 50%, and our profits doubled. So I realized, oh, I did increase by 50% over 2 years each year, but I did it all in the second year. So I just kept affirming in its own perfect time this would happen. And that's what happened.
Wow, that's very cool. That's very cool. I want to keep going on this, but I also want to ask, because I know that people will have questions, in terms of publishing, and that I'm in the movie business. So, and I did a lot of seminars and things. And I often tell people, for example, they've written a script, they're going to be at a party, and they run up to the person with their script and say, "Hey, I've got this script, will you read it?" And of course, the person doesn't want to go home with an armload of scripts. So you're a publisher. So, and obviously people are going to say, "Well, hey, I heard Mark Allen on Rex's show. I'm going to contact Mark." Is there a way that is the best way that somebody who is interested in contacting you or submitting to you can do that in a proper form?
Sure. They can go to the New World Library website and just click on, there's a link at the bottom saying submissions, and it tells exactly how to submit something to us that really works. And we will deal with authors directly without an agent, which a lot of big publishers don't do. So they can contact us. And if they're listening to they could put attention Mark Allen on their submission, whether it's email or snail mail. It'll get to me if you say attention Mark Allen.
Cool. Is there also any right now? I mean, I don't want to just segue out of that, but is there anything that you have either upcoming or that you want to make an announcement for? Because I want to be sure that we do that. We don't that I don't miss any opportunity for you to.
Oh, thanks. Not at this point. I'm personally doing something on the magical path that they can see on my website, which is a monthly thing that people have really appreciated. And in terms of books, we're always looking for something that inspires, that's well done, ideally by someone who does have some kind of strong platform so that they can promote their own book. That's our ideal author. But we're always looking. I would love to find another book that does as well as The Power of Now has done for us, which is my all-time favorite book. And it's also our all-time bestseller.
Well, and I'm sorry, I remiss that I didn't point out some of the other books that you published like that, because you are known for many books. Well, that's awesome. Let's go back a little bit in history, because you and I were talking, and I read
Creative visualization.
when it came out. I mean, that was like the wow. Somebody finally. That's my dog knocked over. So they finally wrote, kind of a how-to manual to do what a lot of like ancients and mystics have been talking about for centuries, and put it in book form, that made it available for us back in those days of early law of attraction meditation days, and things like that. We didn't even call it law of attraction back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that book, that was an author's and publisher's dream. When we first did it, we were just starting up, and we had no promotion department. It was just Shakti Goyal and I were, and both doing it as a part-time job. So we just typeset and printed the book and got it into some local stores, found a little local distributor, and it just started selling word of mouth. It had tremendous word of mouth, which you can't buy. You can't make it happen. It either happens or not. I remember literally getting a call from a bookstore saying, "What's with this book, Creative Visualization? People buy a copy and they come back 2-3 days later and they want 5 copies, 6 copies. What's with this book?" And all I could say was, "Well, it's a great book that really inspires people, really empowers them." And it's simply written. When I first read it, I remember thinking, gee, this is about in 5th grade language. She wrote so simply. I even thought, oh, maybe people say it's too simple. We've sold, I don't know, 10 million globally or something, and not one person has ever said it's too simple.
No, it was a beautiful book. And I mean, I remember at that time reading, like Napoleon Hill and Joseph Murphy and U.S. Anderson, and and so many of these other people. And then this book came out, and we were like, wow, this is truly an amazing book.
Yeah.
How did that come about, that book, that you intersected, or how that?
Yeah, I mean, how did it?
I'm saying, how did you meet, or how did you write, or
Yeah. It's kind of a funny story. I met Shakti Goyal in Berkeley. I was 28, she was 26. We met at a workshop seminar, and we both called ourselves workshop junkies because we'd gone to done so many things. And then we were asked to help a person who was doing a 5-day workshop that culminated in New Year's Eve. And I was supposed to just support him. He was going to pay us, Shakti and I. We had no money, so we did it for the money. He was going to pay me just to support him, hand out things, and then pay Shakti to cook for the. And before this seminar, 25 people came from all over the country. Some flew in from Florida, and the guy got weirder and weirder before the seminar. And finally, 10 minutes before it started, the 3 of us were in the kitchen. He said, "I can't handle this." And he walked out the back door. So Shakti and I first, went into shock. And then we said, well, let's teach it with what we know, because actually one of the weird things he did, he'd burned their checks that they'd sent, saying we shouldn't be attached to material plane. So we had so I even said, well, let's do it. I mean, he's already burned their checks. If they don't like it, they can have their money back. And so we ended up teaching, from what we knew, a 4 or 5 day seminar. And I kept running up and making notes of what we were doing, because I wanted to give them something concrete, because we did so many things, everything we'd ever done, Shakti and I threw in there, all kinds of meditation and this and that. And it ended up being like the first book I wrote. I literally looked up book and publish in a dictionary to see, have I published a book? Because it turned out to be like 60 pages typed up. And I called it Reunion Tools for Transformation, because Reunion was the name of the workshop. And that was the first little book we ended up publishing. And then Shakti took basically the same material, everything we'd done in the workshop, but she called it Creative Visualization. and she wrote it just impeccably. So I remember my reunion book, over maybe 10 years, sold maybe 12,000 and then kind of petered out. And her book just sold millions and millions.
Wow. And I'm gonna venture. I can't say for certain. I may have reunion.
Oh, really?
You say that. I mean, I was just like in my head. I was like, I think I remember that. I know that I have the very first creative visualization book, and then I have an updated version that came out a little while ago or a few years back.
Uh-huh.
I updated that, but I know in my library I have both of those. But I'm willing to bet that I probably do
Oh my God.
have it.
I mean, it did all right. 12,000 copies is okay for a book. Then my second book was called Astrology for the New Age. I did astrological charts in my 20s too. And that sold close to like 25,000 over the years, and then kind of petered out again. Back then, we had this sad thing of having to have books go out of print because you needed to print a certain amount to keep the cost down. And if you weren't selling enough, it wasn't worth it to print it. Now, with ebooks, books never go out of print.
It's truly amazing. That's actually. Let me ask you about that as the difference from the old days of printing to the new days.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't even thought about it that way, but I mean, I get it.
You can do the print on demand. It costs a lot more per unit, but it can work if you charge enough. So you can print 50 copies if you want, and have it as an ebook. And so even if your book sells 10 copies a year, you can keep it in print, whatever it sells. So I love that. I love keeping every book we do in print now.
Well, that's exciting news for the author, but it's also if somebody self-published, for example, they have to inventory that. Technically, they have to be paying inventory tax at the end of the year, where now ebooks must have changed all of that because it doesn't exist really anywhere.
Yep. I love ebooks. I prefer reading a print book myself, and most people apparently do at this point, because we still sell about 3/4 of our books are print books, and about 1/4 are ebooks. But I love ebooks because there's no paper printing, binding, shipping, warehouse, storage costs. We get charged from our distributor if our books have been there longer than a year, and that costs. And ebooks, you have none of those costs. Once it's up there, it just sells, and there's absolutely no cost involved. It's great technology.
It truly is great technology. It's amazing. I know that in my business, I had a seminar business through the 80s and the 90s. I still do, but I mean, at that time when the internet came out, we would be putting out 4-color brochures, 12 pages or whatever they were at the time, and mailing them all over the world. And then the internet came out and said, just send me something. And, I think the first year that happened in the 90s, our print and mailing costs, everything were like halved. It would just cut it totally in half. And then it went down again, and then it went down. I mean, now it's negligible. I mean, you pay a lot for your internet and Wi-Fi and your platforms and everything else, but mailing is way down.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Wow. So for people who've been listening, I mean, some people have big dreams and they really want to know. I mean, if you were I hate to do this to you, but if you're going to pick one of your books to encourage someone to get into first, do you have a path that you would suggest, or just let them choose whatever they're attracted to?
It depends on the type of person. If they can, if the idea of the magical path appeals to them, if modern effective magic, if that appeals to them, that's a book I highly recommend to everybody, Magical Path. If they're more like nuts and bolts and they want it simple, then either the Millionaire Course is really good, or even The Greatest Secret of All. If they're entrepreneur, they really want to do a business, then Visionary Business I'd recommend. So it depends on the person. But
that's fair enough. So let's go back to the first book, and in terms of magic, and today, how would you describe that to someone who's just, say, tuned in right now and they don't know anything about it?
I've always been fascinated with real magic, real magic, not the fantasy of movies or books, or not the illusions of stage magic, but real magic. And when I was 21, I found this book called The Art of True Healing by Israel Regardie in a little magic book shop that was in Madison, Wisconsin, I wandered into. And I ended up with a whole stack of books, but this was the smallest and best of the whole stack. The first sentence it starts with is, within every man and woman is a force that directs and controls the entire course of our lives. Right. Properly used, it can heal every affliction and ailment we may have. Those are the first two sentences. I read that, and I was in horrible health at the time. I was just out of college, the worst health of my life. I had done way too much crystal methadone in college, something I don't recommend for anybody to do. And I read that book and did the meditation from there. They had a meditation called the Middle Pillar Meditation. Now, this in a way is really central to my work, this single meditation where you just imagine healing energy at the top of your head, descending through your whole body, healing everything. You just tie it with breaths and slowly do it and imagine it. The first time I did that, I spent about maybe 30 minutes in the meditation right out of the book of circulating energy with and imagining your body healing. And I remember getting up out of that chair and I felt 20 pounds lighter and I felt healed. I really felt that my body it had a physical effect that I could totally detect and feel doing this meditation. So that's where I got into this meditation. I still do it nearly every day, this middle pillar meditation. If you Google it, middle pillar meditation, Mark Allen, you can get it online.
Oh, cool.
And that then led me to all kinds of different things I did with Western magic. And then once I created success, I looked back and thought, how much of that has been helpful for me and how much, contributed something. And I started noting things in what I thought would be a little book. And over the years, it really grew into very practical, succinct things that I did. And I ended up including then the stuff I've already talked about, writing down your ideal scene, writing your list of goals. Goals is affirmation. That's modern magic to me as well. So that's all in there too.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's beautiful. It is it's a little bit after the hour, and I hope if you don't mind, we can go a little bit longer. You've been so generous with your time and with your knowledge and experience. I really appreciate it. One of the back in the 80s when I was starting out and not starting out, but doing workshops in kind of, as opposed to working for other people doing workshops, but doing my own workshops. And I would look and I would research, things to discuss and how my work and my things changed. And at the time, there were maybe 100, 150 studies that you could find. And in those days, remember, you had to go to the library, you had to get, I forget what it was. The internet wasn't the internet. It was something. But you would go through and you could find studies related to what you wanted, and it was very difficult at the time to pull them up. And later, toward the 90s, you had more like microfiche stuff where they were put together. But there were maybe 100, 150 that had to do with placebo or visualization or attitude in terms of healing and health and well-being or the there wasn't much in terms of the physiological effects associated with thinking. or the brain. So in other words, while there were studies on visualization or some of these healings, there wasn't much to do with, the fact that we have, if you think about exercising, you're actually using those very same muscles. There's a physiological component that happens when you think and when you visualize, and there wasn't much done at that time. And now, if you start searching, there's over 40,000 these kinds of studies and research validating what the ancients have known all along and what people have known. I mean, I don't really know that we find much new in science as much as we verify what people have been talking about for a long, long time. And now the idea that if you do visualize and when you do affirm, you not only because the doctors back in the day, like in the 80s and 90s, when we were doing this stuff, they were all like, "Oh, the placebo effect, it's all in the mind." And if it was in the mind, it had no value. Now they're beginning to, if it's in the mind, it actually has a physical component that it correlates to squirting, neuropeptides and hormones and electrochemical impulses. You're feeling stressed and thinking stressful thoughts, you feel stressed in your body. Or if you visualize working out or skiing or golfing, you're using those same muscles. And they didn't think that not that long ago. I mean, science was like, this is all bogus. It's all this weird, goofy stuff.
Yeah.
And now we know that this magical thinking is something that is being demonstrated over and over and over again to have a far-reaching effect than people ever thought possible. And we're still only scratching the surface of it.
Yeah, we are. We are just scratching the surface. I remember in the early 70s, I took Zen, and I remember my Zen teacher saying, just watch. In the next, 10, 20 years, they'll do a ton of research on the power of meditation. And he was exactly right about that. And it's the same now. All these, like Rick Hansen and all these brain specialists and people, there are amazing studies now and just on the power of visualization, how it does totally affect every cell of your body in a way. And it's great. It's Rick Hansen. I heard a talk of his. He took an exact exercise that I have in Magical Path, where it's just to relax and to remember a really wonderful experience you had at some point, some peak experience or some like falling in love or whatever, an incredible sunset you saw, whatever it is, holding a child, you just remember a wonderful experience and you can just feel it in your whole body and just relax and feel it. He did all kinds of research, having people remember and then measuring the changes that physiologically happen. So he's supporting all these exercises we've been doing for years with solid research saying this stuff really does work. It really does affect your body.
It's truly amazing. And you were on the cutting edge, the forefront of that with publishing, creative visualization and all the other books that you've done in all of these years. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. A whole lot of people say, "Oh, you were such a forerunner. You're like on the forefront." And I always say, well, I remember when we first did the book, I took it to the Bodhi Tree bookstore in LA. This great, huge bookstore that was all spiritual stuff, and I remember just being totally overwhelmed at the number of titles. And so I say to people, well, there was really nothing new in the book. It was just the way it was written. And there were thousands of books out. It have been for thousands of years if you go back in this tradition. I mean, we published a version of the Bhagavad Gita that's an amazing self-help book, if you will, spiritual book. And that's been around for about 5,000 years. So
I was actually 6 years old, and I asked my mom, 7 years old, and asked my mom to read me the Bhagavad Gita because they had a copy in the house. And
incredible.
And it was when I was raised Catholic, and I found that the Catholic Church, the pomp and circumstance, not the nuns who abused me, but the pomp and circumstance of it, I wanted to be a mystic. I knew that there's some kind of weird connection with God or something. So I would ask them to read books, so they're like Khalil Gibran and the Bhagavad Gita, and all these and Napoleon Hill and things. So I was 6 or 7 years old because I couldn't read them, and so that's how I kind of grew up. And so beautiful, beautiful. I love that what you just said about it, because it was one of my first exposures was the Bhagavad Gita.
Wow. That's amazing, Rex, to get into it that young. That's incredible.
I can't say that I understood a whole lot of it at 6 or 7 years old, but I mean, I did know that there was something about it that was completely valid or worthwhile that I wanted to know. So
My single favorite phrase from that book, or the one I really retain, is where he says, even in the knocks of life, we can find great gifts. There's 5,000-year-old wisdom. Even in the knocks of life, we can find great gifts.
you know, I constantly tell people, just go back and look at the ancients, because they had it. They knew, and it's not really that different today. Count to, I mean, this wasn't necessarily ancient, but if you're angry, count to 10, or if you're depressed, go work in the garden. They knew how to engage the mind or the body. They knew how to give you a break or a pause. They understood that whatever happens is now we say it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. But everything that happens, my favorite saying, and I've said for decades now, is if you consider everything a blessing, it's a blessing. So celebrate everything. So even the knocks of life, I mean, because if you didn't have those knocks, you wouldn't discover all the different things that you could discover. So I
Yes.
think that's so gorgeous. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a good phrase you said. If you consider it a blessing, it's a blessing. Is that what?
Consider everything a blessing, it's a blessing, and
That's
celebrate everything, because it's how we look at it that determines what we call it, what we label it.
exactly.
Make all of your moments magical, miraculous, memorable, and magnificent, and they will be.
Great stuff.
Well, and so much great stuff from you. And I don't want to take up more of your time, but let me ask you this: if there was something that you were to close out with that you would want people to know, or anything we haven't talked about that you would like to discuss, I'd love to take that time to do that with you.
I just always encourage everyone to dare to dream. Dare dream. Even 5 years have passed and you're living your ideal scene. You're living your ideal life. What is it? What are you doing? Dare to dream that, and then to write it down as a goal and to go for it. Go for it. And doubts and fears will arise. You can deal with them. You can deal with them. Keep focused on the dream. When you align what's in your mind, your dream, with what's in your heart, when you keep loving it, you will realize that dream. I have a big quote of Thoreau on my desk in big letters here, just saying, there has to be the generating force of love behind every effort destined to succeed. And to me, that's the key. You dare to dream that dream, and you keep your love behind it. You keep loving it. You keep going back to that. Doubts and fears will get you off track. You keep going back to that dream and doing the next thing. And that is the key to manifesting anything and living the life of your dreams.
That is truly beautiful, and it's also what I so love in what you just said, is to keep going back, to keep returning, because we can go astray, but to keep coming back to it, and to focus on that. That is beautifully put.
Thank you.
Mark, this has been an amazing time with you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate us having this, the listeners, the viewers, and myself having the opportunity to spend this time with you.
Well, my pleasure, Rex. It's just been delightful. It's really good meeting you.
Yes, likewise, and I hope we can do it again sometime. And in the meantime, I just a moment ago flashed up, and we'll do it again. But the how to reach you at markallen.com or at newworldlibrary.com.
Great.
And Marcus, if you've just tuned in as we're about to close out, Mark has listed some of his books that, well, go and find his books, because you should read all of them. They are absolutely wonderful books. And but we were talking about some of them today. And please do share this interview with other people, this discussion that we've had, because obviously I can't do it, Mark can't do it, we can't do it all, the Tribune can't do it alone, but you can help us by sharing on whatever platform you've tuned into. So, Mark, I want to thank you again for your time, and not only for your time today, but for all the time that you have contributed to us and the rest of us around the world through your efforts, through your speaking, through your music, through your entrepreneurial different businesses, and through your publishing. I mean, you have really touched the lives and hearts of millions and millions and millions of people around the globe for many, many years. So thank you kindly for all of that.
Well, thank you, Rex, for all you are and all you do too. Thank you.
I will see you again. Thanks for being here, and be well. Much love, peace, and blessings to you, sir.
You too.
That is Mr. Mark Allen. What an amazing guest and an amazing time well spent together. I am so happy and so thrilled that we could do that. And again, please visit Mark at the websites that you've seen there, and please do share this show again wherever, from YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, by the way, hit the like buttons and go ahead and leave a comment. Leave a I'll tell you what you do. One of Mark's quotes that he just gave, go ahead and leave that in the comments. That would be beautiful. Say Mark said, and then leave one of his quotes in the comments. That's a great way to have a comment. And then go ahead and share it. Subscribe to the channel, and or turn people onto it on Roku TV. I want to thank you so much for being here today. We're here next week. My guest next week is Forbes Riley. She is the pitch queen, selling over $2 billion worth of stuff on television for many, many years. You're going to love listening to her. And always stay tuned. Go back and watch other shows. We're here every Thursday live and recorded, 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, and wherever else in the world the time is, you can find us. And this is All Things Rex Worldwide Live. I want to thank the LA Tribune. And again, my incredible guest, Mr. Mark Allen, and the New World Library for all of the incredible works throughout all of the years. So with that, thank you for being here. We'll see you the next time. And